Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Jack Barth from Landscaping Solutions. So, Jack was the original owner of InStyle Gardens. So, I was pretty excited when he said yes to coming on. So, he's the fella I did my apprenticeship with and then bought the business off. So, it was fascinating to talk to him. And it was interesting talking to him um, and learning things that he did while I was still working for him that I didn't know about, like the designs and talking to a business coach and just felt like there was a lot more things that I could have learned at the time, but you're also learning other things. So it was, but yeah, I found it really interesting talking to him, and um, even though I'd worked with him, I was understanding a lot more about the way he was doing things at the time. So it was, fascinating chat for me to have. I absolutely loved having a chat to him, and also liked how he was talking about now, like, because when I asked him about what his mentality was like going from working for yourself to working for someone else, and he basically said that he just still treated it the same. So if there was times where the business should take a loss for a certain reason, then that's what he suggested should happen. So it was great hearing that. Yeah, because a lot of people would realize that they've struggled to work for someone else, but if you can find somewhere where you can have a similar mentality and a business that supports you doing that, then that's a good way to go. And I especially loved when he mentioned the Bruce Winstanley quote about first the place you're going to lose money on a job is when you're quoting it. So I couldn't speak more highly of that and highlight that more. So that's some wise words from a wise man. So as I said, I loved having this chat with Jack. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Jack Barth. Jack, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Oh, well, first of all, Joel, thank you for having me. Industry, I started an apprenticeship actually, Melbourne Zoo, 1992. Did a horticulture apprenticeship straight out of year 12. So yeah, that's how I started in the industry, what, over 30 years ago.
So how long were you there for?
Did my full time, so three and a bit, I think you could get out, 3.5 years. I was pretty much done with ornamental horticulture straight out of there. So I actually got into arboriculture after that. So I went and worked I saw while I was working there, I got a bit to work with some arborists there. So got to work, experience, and thought that looked like it was a pretty cool avenue to follow. So yeah, went and studied or did my advanced certificate in ARB, and then went and did tree work actually.
Did you find it fascinating all working at the zoo? Because I've spoken to a couple of people there and I found it fascinating. I don't know if it was the same when you were there, but things like growing plants for butterflies to eat rather than stopping them from getting eaten and different things.
100%. It was an awesome place to do an apprenticeship because I had a massive, I grew up on a farm, had a massive sort of animal husbandry sort of experience, wanted to be a vet. So I guess that tied in well with working at a zoo, all the different animals. So I love that side of it. And the different aspects of, worked in the nursery for a while at the zoo, they had their own nursery, propagate their own plants for the butterfly food and whatnot. And then got involved with the ornamental horticulture side of things, but also the construction. So I did a lot of new builds. I think we did the what was with the hippo and mandrill enclosures, tiger enclosure back in the day. So and did a fair bit with fake rock. So and did some of that sort of construction. Went to Healesville, did sort of platypus enclosure. So that sort of construction stuff was really cool and sort of something out of the left field, I guess. So that was probably what I really enjoyed with it. And then being exposed to the arboricultural stuff, which went, then I sort of moved in that direction after that. Yeah.
So what was it about the tree climbing that you liked the most?
I thought it just looked fun, to be honest. Young at that point, was quite fit and just thought it was a bit of a challenge. So yeah, it was on the edge a bit too. So start climbing some of those trees, by the end of it, you're climbing trees at 100, 130, 140 foot tall, clearing power lines or, doing, deadwooding out on small limbs in a two-rack backyard. I was just good as a young fella. And it was, I guess that was good, all that learning. And you're only as limited to how hard you wanted to push yourself, I guess. So it was to be a good climber, I think you'd have a little bit of no fear factor. So if you could push yourself get up there fast and do it fast, you got rewarded for that. So I guess that progression in that industry went pretty quick for me. It wasn't, I think I was only in my early 20s and I was a supervisor with like 20, 30 guys doing council contracts. So it sort of happened really quickly and probably helped in the management stuff, having those sort of guys and having that responsibility. And then later on went back contracting as just a specialist climber for many years. So yeah.
How long were you doing the tree climbing for?
I think for me, I think I was about 30. So I would have been a good 8 years. I guess for me, it was like, I don't know if I can do this forever. Pretty taxing on your body. And it's hard work. So it was probably for me as like, oh, I don't know if I could keep doing this forever. So I always, for me, it was like, well, I probably need to get a bit of an exit plan at some point. And I always, I guess the time for me when I was doing that contract climbing, the landscape industry was sort of having a little bit of a surgence was Jamie Jury. Backyard Blitz was massive in the I guess that would have been late 90s into the 2000s. It was really like people were starting to notice landscape. And for me, I started in design, actually went sort of back to my sort of ornamental horticulture roots and started doing a fair bit of design as well as climbing, but they're doing some little front yard, backyard designs, hand drawn sketches. They were probably pretty average, but yeah, that's how I started back in landscape, I guess.
And then do you get people get you starting to build them as well? Those
Yeah,
designs?
that's sort of how I progressed. So those hand sketched drawings sort of then morphed into I went and did a course and did a basic CAD course and started doing some better quality drawings. And then it wasn't too long until till building and we had a crew of guys, constructing work. So yeah, that happened pretty quickly actually in that early 2000s, yeah.
So was that your plan when you started designing to build them, or did that just naturally
I
happen?
think it sort of just happened, to be honest. I mean, it was probably just morphed. Hey, there's an opportunity here. People are wanting designs, wanting something bespoke in their backyard, and it just happened naturally. So yeah, I wanted to get out of trees, and that I always enjoyed that design element. I guess to be able to create something from nothing, and that using that horticultural experience was good with all the different plant palettes, I guess, and mixing them and coming up with designs that were not just cookie cutter sort of things, but try to come up with some stuff that's different. Obviously, you took inspiration from anywhere. There wasn't, I guess, in those days we didn't really have the internet. There were a bit of dial up, but we couldn't just Google anything. I had a fair few books, and I think you've had Paul Bangay on yours, and I remember having his books were early doors were pretty instrumental, and taking the cues from those books was always something I did. But yeah, I just enjoyed that, creating something from nothing. And then I guess the relationship with a client, you have that initial meeting and then you go through the different steps in the design process was always something I enjoyed as well. Yeah.
And so how did you go about finding employees to put on to start with?
Well, I I think someone by the name of Joel Barnett was pretty early on in that
I think
journey for me.
I think you've
Hey?
been going for a couple of years before I
Yeah, I'd
started.
been going. I would have had. I think I had a couple of apprentices on at the time, and it was always look like anything. Like the market today is really hard to find employees. Back then, it was probably a bit easy to get young fellas like yourself at the time to do the trade and to do landscape because it was an attractive trade to do. Yeah, it was always a challenge to get good ones. You always churn through multiples to find the right one, but yeah, it was like any business, whether big or small, your staff are key. So I know that when you came on, it was great, and people that are dedicated and looking to do quality work day in day out. That's what makes a small business work, makes it successful, really.
And then when you got Sean on as well, like you kind of took a step back a bit as well. So did you have plans on doing more designs?
Oh, look, it was, I guess for me. a critical point was I had a business coach at one point, and it wasn't like it was free. It was a retired businessman came around one night and had a chat to him, and he was really good, and he showed me. I had some spreadsheets working out my costs and whatnot, but he just showed me some basic numbers on how to work out, your overheads and your running costs. And for me, it was pretty evident then how easy it was, well, not easy, how you could duplicate or how you could get bigger and keep that, and your actual cost of operation came down. So it was that was a bit of an eye opener for me. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So if I put another team on or have two teams, my hourly rate can drop a little bit. Yes, I need more volume, but I can probably achieve that. And that's sort of how that happened. So I sort of thought, well, if I can keep the designs coming in and get someone that's better than me to build it, which Sean was clearly that, and with yourself to teach you, always the plan was you have Sean and someone like yourself, running a couple of crews. It just seemed like it was replicable, through for a small business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird when you work through those spreadsheets and like the less people you got, the higher your hourly rate is. Like
Yes.
it's I found it confusing, but yeah, that's how it works.
100%. And it's just when you looking at those numbers on the sheet, cool. If I had an extra two guys in and the productivity changes and then the hourly rate comes down, but as you know, as soon as you drop a couple of those guys out and you're not getting the productivity, well, the hourly rate goes up, so the money you're taking out of the job comes down. So it's a juggle. You've got to have it right, and it's no different whether you're running a $10,000 job or you're running a $100,000 job. It's all the same. It's all
Yeah,
relevant.
yeah, and something I struggled to understand is two people don't work twice as fast as one either. So that's something cool.
Uh, that's a lesson learned. Yeah, learned that lesson, and that's the right people. And it's the right mix. You can have the wrong people together and you get nothing done. You put a couple of good people, together, or you might have one by himself. It's not that you would do that, but it's just that blend. And over the years, some teams work really well, some don't. You've got to cut a few out sometimes or mix it up and change them around and work to people's strengths. And that's business, I guess, and you learn that along the way pretty quickly, I would have thought.
Yep. And one of the exciting things I experienced while working for InStyle was heading up to Queensland to work for a week when you took the business up there as well.
Yep.
How long had you been thinking of that?
Oh, look, that just happened. We come on holidays a couple of times to Mooloolaba and drive around. I thought, geez, there's a lot happening here, a lot of building going on. I thought there was an opportunity that we could probably capitalize on. Had plenty of work in Geelong. I was like, well, let's bugger it. Why not have a crack at it? And look, I got started really, it was really got going really quickly. Had a heap of work because for me, the little sort of the system we had and the designs and that sort of clientele we had in Geelong was working well. It was a high-end clientele, and there was plenty of those people moving to Queensland. So I thought from Melbourne, Sydney, or whatever. So they weren't getting that service up here. Having said that, they also weren't spending the money on their new builds as much as they were in Geelong. So the new build in proportion to what they're spending on a house was, they'd spend $1 million on a house and they're spending 15 grand in an epoxy landscape. So it was very, very different back then in the, I guess, early 2000s. The market was nowhere near as it is now. It's quite, I would say, it's getting closer to the standard in Sydney and Melbourne, because some of the stuff on the beachfronts are pretty high end these days. But yeah, it was certainly very different. Unfortunately for me at that time, when I came up, I think it was 07, 08, the GFC hit, which was a disaster. So didn't have that network of builders, or just didn't have that network of people to sort of pull work from, and sort of it didn't work that well at that point. So timing was crap, and then sort of retreated back to Geelong to recoup, and then eventually ended up back up here.
So how did you get the work up there to start with?
Straight up ad in the Yellow Pages, which was a
Wow.
thing back
Not,
in
not
those
that
days.
existed back then.
Some of the people that listen would remember the Yellow Pages ads. I don't think they don't even exist now, do they? Yellow
I think
Pages.
I've seen them get around. They're very thin.
But yeah, that put a bang straight up half page ad in the Yellow Pages, and it was, yeah, it worked. It worked straight away. So I guess the presentation, turning up the quotes, doing the biz was it worked. And people go, well, we haven't sort of had this before. It's like, this is what we do. And so that happened really quickly, and was it was a good formula. But yeah, once the GFC hit, everyone just pulled back. All those retirees that were coming up, you know, kept all their cash, didn't spend it, and it pretty much shut down for 3 years, I reckon. Here it was pretty grim. Yeah.
Yep. So what sort of challenges did you have with, like, because you're basically running a job, running a business in Geelong and one on the Sunshine Coast. So what was,
Well, one thing, I did have some very good staff at that time. So yourself and Sean, I set a shed up at Sean's place in his residence. Trusted him, trusted you. So I guess that's a critical point. You couldn't do it without people you couldn't trust, and they were invested in the business. So for them, it was, well, we've got a business, we can be pretty flexible. We got good ownership in it. We can control the creative. We can control what we build. So that was a no-brainer, really. I mean, it was something that you wouldn't just do. Probably wouldn't do it these days. I probably haven't got the set of kahunas to do something like that now. But I don't know, back then it was just like, well, cool, there's an opportunity, let's have a crack. We're still getting plenty of design work in Geelong. Like, that wasn't a problem. We had heaps of work. So yeah, I was going down once a week or once a fortnight, do a bunch of site meetings, pick up a bunch of work, and then sit in my office in Queensland and design it. So it was working well. So yeah, I don't know.
did you find the work ethic of the Queenslanders different?
Just everything different. Like, everything you can think of is different, and still is these days. I mean, I've probably turned a bit Queensland myself, but yeah, this just the way they build things, the way they work, their attitudes toward it, completely different, and their knowledge. Luckily, I did have a guy up here working for me that was ex-Victorian, so he was quite knowledgeable. But just the labour was very hard to get consistent, good ones, and being on the sunny coast is good, pretty high surf culture, so you get some swell in February. Cyclone comes and there's a big swell, you have no one turn up for work. It was pretty different. But yeah, look, it was good. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yep. And then I told you I was going to be starting Gardens by Joel and going on my own. And
Yeah,
that's when you decided to offer me the business.
I do remember that. I can remember it vividly, to be
I've still
honest.
got some business cards too.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess ultimately, I don't know, it's one of those things where I had a dream or a view as a kid. I came to the Sunshine Coast as a 15-year-old, and I remember going to Mooloolaba then, and we went, and it was like, I really liked this. It was really, I don't know, somewhere different. It was a cool place. I always wanted to live up here. So I guess it was one of those, well, I've sort of started this Queensland journey. I want to go back. So yeah, when you were doing that, was opportunity to go, look here, here's an opportunity to get you kick started in a business. And I retreated and come up to Queensland, and yeah, the rest is history, they say.
So ever thought of selling the business?
Oh, look, you're not really selling a lot, to be honest. I mean, yeah, had some equipment, some gear. You run a business, you don't always run it at a profit for tax reasons, I guess. So someone that's buying it off the street's going, well, that's not great, but you have all the benefits. So I did talk to a business broker at the time. Again, GFC wasn't a great time in that sort of era. It's sort of like, well, let's just get out of it. And I did start my own thing up here when I got back up and started rowing again, but it just probably wasn't. I just didn't have the contacts to make it really. It's always hard in a new area. You're never a local on the sunny coast. Like, I've been here, 15 years now. I'm not a local.
Oh,
So it's pretty clicky. So you work that out pretty quickly too. But yeah, I just that sort of prompted a shift in the industry, I guess, at that point in time. Yeah.
And then what did you do? Where'd you move to after that? Did you go
So
into?
yeah, well, from that, I landed at a company called Penfold Projects as a project manager. So no official, trade qualified. That's pretty much it. So I really had no business training or anything like that. Started with them as a resi PM, so running some small residential projects out of Brisbane, and yeah, just sort of stepped through the ranks, I guess. After a couple of years, I was running the sunny coast and north, so we're running jobs from Caloundra to Townsville. Lots of remote jobs out at Roma, and there's jobs everywhere. Jobs all up and down all southeast Queensland, Rocky, everywhere. So lots of commercial builders, some big, some small. Jobs up to $8 million in value. Royal Adelaide Hospital was 8 mil. Yeah, so lots of experience, and you pretty much baptism of fire working for tier one builders out of a resi. And I worked my way up, but it's a different commercial construction is a different beast. So you've got a resi client. It's about keeping Mrs. Jones happy because she pays the bills and make sure that everything's sweet there. Commercial, let's put your boxing gloves on and let's go. And then it's a fight every day. And I used to love it, to be honest. It was it was game on, walk on site, and you just ultimately you've got a scope, you've got a set of drawings, you've got a specification, and you're building to that, and then you've got a builder who's trying to save money, cut money out of your scope, or cut money out of your claim, and it's a battle from day one. Battle for real estate, battle for real estate on site, battle to get guys in and out, and all that sort of thing. So I guess I enjoyed that. Was a new challenge for me to sort of learn the commercial part of the world, and it was eat or get eaten really at the end of the day. So I guess after a few years, ended up sort of moving up to sort of as construction manager at Penfolds. We're probably turning over 20-25 mil a year, and probably at that point would have had 50-60 guys. So yeah, pretty decent operation.
And then what did you go to after that?
So after that, there was a signature project on the sunny coast up here, the hospital, which was massive, big public hospital, which was literally 5 minutes from home. So that was like everyone on the coast was talking about this job coming up, and I sort of targeted it pretty early, like I want to build that. Tendered it, so I worked on the tender at Penfolds, and we come second. And a company by the name of Landscape Solutions won it. I happened to sit beside Tim at a breakfast, one of the industry breakfasts one day just before that, and met him and had a bit of a chat. And then Solutions won the job and pretty much went, well, I'm going to try and fulfill this goal. I've got to hit Tim up and flicked him a message, and pretty much caught up in the next week. And after that, I was on site running their job on the sunny coast, running that job. So look, nothing against, Todd and Penfolds. It was just one of those things that I wanted to build that job. It happened, and yeah, it was great. Built the job. Job went for a couple of years. And when I was talking before about commercial landscape and the fight, well, there was a different fight on that job. It was a union site. So CFMU, their biggest job kicking around, they were militant. They were full on. So that took it to a whole different level of and you were just recently, obviously in Melbourne, they've been all over the news, the brothers. So yeah, it was that and some. It was full on. So we probably had 30 guys on site, did all the concreting. So I had a bunch of concreters, which are heavily unionised. And yeah, it was brutal in terms of that part of it. The landscape side was easy in the general construction, but the management of, I guess, the builder, the client, and the unions was something else. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener. Let's just say that.
And did you make any money off it from being able to work to that cheaper cheaper price that they got, considering Penfolds is more?
So, look, it was a tough job. I think we did all right in the end, but it was pretty tough to build. And strikes, and the unions had the labour forces out in the street and standing everyone down. It was tough. We did all right in the end, but yeah, it was definitely a steep learning curve of how that part of the world works and how that sort of beast functions, especially in Queensland. So, or how it did function. Let's just say that.
Well, you'd have plenty of Maoris in the union there.
No, no, we didn't really. It's not a lot of look because the coast. So everyone was very similar on the coast. I guess that job was like right. Everyone wanted to work on it because union rates, good coin. So everyone was doing what they could. So it was easy to get blokes to work on that job site because it was the best money in town. Everyone was trying to fight to get on the job. So yeah, it was good mix of people on site, some great people. But yeah, it was just that environment. Big job. That's what those big jobs are like. So, but good learning for me. It was like right, sort of really toughened you up, I guess, in terms of the commercial landscape world.
And is commercial pretty much the cheapest price wins?
Look, cheapest price, yeah, that gets you in the door. But I think like any business, I guess, or especially in the landscape industry, any industry, it's relationships and people, realistically, at the end of the day. Yeah, you got to have a good price, but the most of the work you win, or we win, I win, is on a relationship with someone. So that's built on trust, it's built on experience. I find most of the jobs that, get ourselves into, you've worked with someone, you've done a job for them, they know what you can deliver, they know when the whips are cracking, you can get it done. And you'll win 9 times out of 10, you'll win a job on that experience and that trust. Yes, you've probably got to come down and meet the new guy coming in and try and, cut the ass out of it. But that's the industry. And I think if you can build those relationships not only with the client or the builder, then you got your strong relationships with your subbies because they're on the back of you winning the job. You're winning the job on your subbies as well, so you need them tight, and then obviously then your staff as well. But if you can keep everyone on the same singing from the same hymn book, it does make it a lot easier, and it gets you. They know the team that you bring to a job, and then more than likely you're going to win that job based on that that relationship. So jobs like those hospital jobs, you have a bunch of people you work for, but then when that job finishes, they all split, they all end up at all different places, and your phone keeps ringing. Oh, I'm now here. I'm now here. Can you have a look at this? So you might do that one job, but you might get another 6 jobs out of that one job where the foreman, the site supervisors, the PMs have all gone to other companies or other projects. So yeah, that's sort of how it generally works, I think. But relationships are the key, I think, in anything.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's the same in the residential because there's certain builders that we work with, and it's like we're all a team. Like there's the same plumbers, the same sparkies, same landscaper, all doing the same job. So all different businesses, but everyone knows how to work together and looks after each other, and you're not sort of just being selfish and doing whatever you need to do with it without regarding anyone else. So I assume, and the dollars are a lot more on commercial. So you want people who are gonna, who you can trust like that on those
Yeah,
sites.
100%. And you'll find that even in tender meetings, you'll have a tender meeting. Oh, who's doing this? Oh, yeah, it's so and so. Yeah, I know. Then I did that last job with them. Bang! Instantly, they've got the it's peace of mind to know that okay, cool, you're going to get along with them. It's all good. Happy site. Job moves quicker. We can resolve problems quicker. There's always a problem. So it's about how you can resolve it. And if you can make it easy for the builder, well, you're going to win the job. So that 100%, that's exactly how it works in the commercial world. Yeah.
So how far do you have to travel after that hospital job for the next one?
Look, spent a bit of time back in Brizzy, probably another, well, it probably ended up after probably 6 years, I reckon. So yeah, ended up from that becoming the BDM for Queensland for Landscape Solutions. So I was pretty much travelling all over Southeast Queensland looking at jobs and winning jobs, which was a bit of a trek, over an hour, up to 2 hours a day each way, which took its toll. So I spent a good probably 3 years at Solutions then, and then actually went full circle and went back to Penfolds where I started as general manager. big business at that point, probably turning 30 plus 30 million a year, over 100 employees. So big business, a lot of jobs. I think I had at that point 6 PMs, and there would have been at least 6 PMs and at least 6 CAs in the team,
What's a
plus all
CA?
the contract administrator. So yeah, most team had a project manager and a contract administrator. So they'd have run a bunch of jobs, and that was across 6 teams. But yeah, that was a pretty big deal. A lot happening. Probably the hardest part of that was staff and staff retention and resourcing jobs. Pretty much every week was, trying to replace staff that had left and replenish for new jobs. It was a constant, pretty much revolving door. And that's the industry, but, trying to upskill and replacing staff. So that was challenging time, good jobs. Done some really, really cool jobs when in the late, maybe 2019, 2018, we won Commercial Landscape of the Year with a job we did, massive high-rise job. So, that was a highlight to be able to knock all the other commercial guys off to win an award like that. So that was nice. So yeah, and sometimes you don't realise it when you're building and how hard it is and how shit it is when you're fighting with everyone. But you get 12 months down the track and go to awards dinner and you win the big ones. Pretty cool. So
That's a good compliment for you on the way you left Penfolds as well, that they are happy to take you back. So that's a good thing. That
yeah.
keep those
Look,
relationships.
the industry is pretty small. You sort of, you don't always leave on the best of note, but you also leave your mark on how you run stuff as well, and what you do and what you can deliver. So that at the end of the day probably speaks volumes of what I've been able to achieve in terms of running jobs and running businesses like that. So yeah, it's good. It's a small industry. There'll be plenty of people I've worked with. It's always a bit of a running joke. Did I sack someone? Yeah, well, maybe. But, you're going to get that. But, yeah, it's a small industry. We all run into each other, tender meetings or wherever, everywhere. So it's it's like that.
And then you've gone full circle again. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a stint back in the after Pennies, went back in the resi world, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So it was sort of like riding a bike when you sort of jumped back. It was living style, doing high-end pools, high-end landscape, and that was really cool. Lots of stuff up at Sunshine Beach. Really, good budgets and good clients, and did some really cool pools, some really cool landscapes. Won a fair few awards from stuff that we did. We actually at Living Style. When I was there, I instigated a landscape design component of the business. So I've got a designer on, and we've got some guys in the Philippines doing some 3D stuff as well, which was, it was really, really fun actually. It was challenging with that offshore, but it was to be able to generate, 3D images, 3D, which is pretty commonplace these days, but do that 3D fly-throughs, and it's pretty easy to sell a pool when you do a 3D and you go, right, this is what your pool's going to look like. You jump in the water, you jump out of the water. They're like, yeah, where do we sign?
Yeah.
So it was good, different. Like you just sort of, you got to adjust how you go about it. But for me, being in resi for such a long time, it was a good change. And then we hit sort of COVID, which, the market changed a little bit with COVID and a few things changed. So sort of got out the end of that, and then found myself back at Landscape Solutions doing project management work, and now find myself back where I probably always wanted to be, doing commercial work on the sunny coast. So we've got Solutions we're kind enough to go, right, let's have a crack at this. And we've got a little office on the coast now, which I'm working out of daily. I'm not doing the travel to Brizzy every day, which is good for my health. I have to eat chips on the way home in the car to keep myself awake. So now it's great. We've got a lot of those contacts and relationships we've had. We've got work. We've probably got $7-8 million worth of work on the books on the coast. Office, little shed, 15, 20 minutes from home. Yeah,
That,
couldn't be happier, to be honest.
oh, good. When you went to Living Style, did you find yourself running things differently from what you'd learned in commercial world? Did any of that relate?
100% related, 100%. So I guess the budgeting, for me, I don't think it's no different. And the good guys will say it's all, if you got to work out. Bruce Winstanley once said to me, he goes, you don't make any money when you win the job, you make money when you price the job. And that doesn't matter if it's a commercial job or a resi job. You stuff it up when you put your submission in your stuff, and you're chasing your tail from day one. So I guess that part of it was critical to go to resi and then be able to work out those production rates the boys are getting on site. So whether it's, laying crazy pave at 2 square meters a day or 8 square meters a day, you've got to sort of work out what you've got in your team and work out what their production rates are. And same with pools and what we're doing fully tiled pools. So it's like what production rates are we getting? So I guess the principle of pricing work doesn't change. The emotion does. So when you're working with a client, that's what you've got to tap into, that emotion of a client. So I shouldn't say that, if the client comes out and they don't like the color of the tile, their mind's not going to change. You've got to work your way around that. But if it's about tightening up your drawings, your specifications, and going through that procurement part or the product selection part early with a resi client to make sure, this is your tile, this is how they're going to match. Go through all those things, get all your ducks in a row. Then by the time you get to site, it's going to be fine. So that's why the drawings were critical in that, to make sure we had the landscape architect doing the drawings, getting them right, making sure they had a 3D visual. And the 3D visual I found was a good thing and a bad thing, because they can take it
to say the same thing.
Super literal. It's like,
Yeah.
I thought it was going to look like that. Well, yeah, that roof can't just hang in midair. You need to have a beam supporting it. Things like that. It's sort of that lesson was learned a bit early on when you're doing the 3D renders. Like, oh, no, we need to get this exactly right. We need to put a stirrup in there for the bottom of that post. We need to all those little things, because when they come out with their picture when the job's built, going, why doesn't it look exactly the same? You've obviously experienced it.
Yeah, because they're spending a lot of time looking at that as well, because they've been thinking about it for a long time. Then they get the design done, and then it might take 9 months before you start the project. So they've just been looking at it, wanting that in their backyard, and then you build it and think, it's not what I thought it would be.
So look, it's about, I guess, managing that process and talking to them through the build and go, hey, look, for this reason, we might have had to tweak this a little bit. We've had to add or whatever it might be. So it's just that constant management. No different to a commercial client, I don't think, because you've got to manage their expectations. And I think more so in commercial these days, I find you've got to educate them, because they don't know. They haven't, and you've got a lot of kids I say kids, but a lot of, young contract administrators, engineers that are coming out of school. They've built nothing, and they've got no idea how to build anything. They're looking at a detail going, how's that work? Well, it's like, well, that detail's actually not right. We've got to build it like this. So you're sort of, and it's all the way up, because I reckon the construction industry's lost a lot of people, and the experience has gone out the door. So old people like me, you get in the site going, well, you've got to try and train these people on how we actually have to build a job up. And then that dovetails into how much things cost, and then trying to, manage that part of it. And commercial, there's always a way to try and save a buck and make a buck. Resi, you're always you probably just, you go a little bit further to make sure the client's happy and they walk away with that warm, fuzzy feeling of a job, and they want, you want them to invite you back and have a beer when they finish the job, and you stand beside the pool on the bar, and they're all, happy with you. That's what we ultimately want, because obviously resi that word of mouth's worth more than any half-page yellow pages ad.
Yeah. And you can get repeat business as well if you're in business long enough, because I've worked for people who worked for when you were running the show.
Yeah, that was fantastic to see that job we did up at
Yeah.
where was that, near Dalesford
Yeah.
or wherever it was up there.
Well, there was two. There was one. There was that one in Bacchus Marsh,
Yeah, that's right.
but
Yeah.
there's also the one in Highton we did as well.
Oh yeah, cool.
It was
Yeah, it's
fair.
so good to go back and for you to go back, what, 15, 20 years later and see those bottle trees that were
Yeah,
just,
they're insane.
that was unreal. And I remember when we did that, when we did those bottle trees, like I'd never planted them in a resi job. And it was just one of those things. I loved them, thought they were really cool. And we got them into a job and we sourced them. And yeah, it was pretty cool. It was good to see them all those years later.
Yeah, yeah, and the clients couldn't be happier with what was done as well. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
remember it being cold though when we built it.
it's worst time ever. That's all I remember about that job. It was horrific. And now you're
Yeah.
in the Sunshine Coast instead, so now
Yeah, well, now
cold
it's
for
the
you is like 25.
well, you won't get the middle of summer here, and look, I still, I work at home and do a little bit of work on the weekends to keep my hand in it a bit, and yeah, during summer I'm used to it now, but yeah, she gets hot.
Yeah. That week we worked up there in Gympie. It was I think it was middle of July, so it was smack bang in the middle of winter. And I
Yeah.
was in the singlet straight out the door. So it was probably about 20 degrees, but that was hot enough for
Yeah,
me.
look, that was part of the attraction to come here is the weather is just, yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, now
You
there's
get
heaps of
used to
people
the
coming
heat,
up
but then
there.
the winter is just, you walk down the beach and, take the dog for a walk on the beach this time of year is just magnificent. Yeah, it's
And there's
beautiful.
a lot more Victorians up there now as well.
Well, that's the problem at the moment.
There's too many.
Calandra's gone from being this lovely, quiet little quaint coastal town, which they've done a massive development, and I have to sit in traffic, now on Caloundra Road, which was never the case. Yeah, you get your benefits from that, but it's certainly not the cruisy little coastal town I saw when I come up. And even then, there was a heap of people moving there. So I talk to locals now, and they're like, "Oh man, it was only sand dunes and tea tree when we were kids." So yeah, it's very very different.
They're like people from Torquay complaining about
Yeah,
moving there.
it's all the Mexicans, mate, and I can't talk. I'm one of them. So one thing I do find interesting these days is when I get a lot of people from Victoria come up and apply for jobs, and they come in and they sit down. And it's like, and you look at them and go, yeah, you're a Mexican for sure, and it's like, where you from? Oh, what do you mean? Where are you from, mate? You're not from here. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Victoria. Whereabouts? And then they look at you like, well, what's this guy on? Oh, I'm from Geelong. Oh, really? And that's happened multiple
Yeah,
times,
right.
like it's just like, and there's been blokes come in that, we've known people had mutual, acquaintances or whatever. So yeah, it's very funny. They all come up and they all come up for, like I did when I was 30, looking for the good life. And yeah, look, it's a good place to live, but every place has its good bits, every place has its downsides, I guess.
Yeah.
So
So with the project that you're looking after, are the people who are doing those work, like doing the construction, are they locals as well, or do they move around between jobs?
yeah, so I got a local team of landscapers. So I guess our business is heavily weighted to subbies. So we won't have a lot of our own staff on site. We might have 3, 4, machine operator, foreman, a couple of landscapers, and then heavily weighted to subcontractors. So local subbies, got a job at the moment, a school, so it's got a big sports field. It's got, playgrounds, it's got, general landscaping, it's got tiling, stonework. It's got a fair few elements, but a lot of those elements are subcontracted. So again, pulling those relationships with subbies you've got, but that increases obviously your power to be able to build multiple jobs with not many staff, I guess. So I don't have, I might have, I just finished a job worth about 1.2, really detailed, 1,200 square meters, $1.2 million job in the city, but I only had 3 staff on there. So the foreman had a machine operator / stonemason and an apprentice, and the rest was subbies.
Yep.
So you can sort of see that mix. I mean, every business is different in how they do it. Some commercial businesses will have a lot more of their own staff. That comes with its own headaches. the way that we do things is a lot heavily weighted to the subcontractors. So yeah, you don't have that ultimate flexibility with that trade, but if you've got the relationship, it's sort of like having your own staff, and you roll on from job to job. So I've got, you be competitive and you send everything out, but ultimately, like the builders, you go to the ones you trust and the ones you know that are going to deliver. As long as you keep them honest with, price comparisons, it tends to work pretty good. So, and you build that team. So you might only have a couple of guys, but you've got a big team of people you've worked with over the years, and you build that network up. And then if you've ever got a question or you need someone, you've got someone in your phone you can probably call up to get you out of the shit, more likely.
Yeah. Are there any landscape architects who work for Landscape Solutions, or are they all the projects come already designed?
Yeah, generally they're already done by the builder, or the client have already done that. But what I do find is you're working for those repeat work with those landscape architects. So like the resi world, you do develop those relationships, and they'll have some weight sometimes in the decision. So depending on the project, if it's a development project, they'll definitely have a weight in deciding who's going to build that job. A builder job generally, cheapest price. But I guess what I've done in the past too is you'll leverage that. Hey, this architect's on this job. I know them. I've worked with them. I know how they operate, and use that as leverage to win the job. So those relationships are critical. You never know where they're going to pop up. So you try not to burn any bridges with them. So yeah, referral wise, you probably don't get it as much as a resi world, but you can certainly make your life easier or better if you've got that relationship with them. And everything down from nursery visits to site inspections. If they got trust you just take a couple of photos and send it in, and it's pretty smooth going, really.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you
To
look
be
that far
honest,
ahead?
if I'm doing exactly the same thing in 5 years, I'll be very happy.
Yeah.
I think I've got to a point where I worked pretty hard. I've done a fair bit of work on a house, and I've finished that, I guess. From a personal point of view, I'm just really comfortable and happy building this Sunshine Coast part of our business. So I'd really like to see, I've got some space here that potentially that we could fill with some support eventually. So contract administration, possibly estimating, that sort of thing out of this sort of area, this region that we've got. So yeah, I ultimately hope I'm still sitting in this shed or a place on the coast doing what I'm doing. I guess it's about, say, comfortable, but I really enjoy it. It's fun. It's not super stressful. I'm 50 now, so I don't really want too much drama. And I'm not interested in, working in the resi world. I'm not interested in doing it for myself. No, I'm interested in, working hard, doing a good job, and, having a weekend, to be honest.
Have you found, or has it changed since you started working for other people? But did you find yourself thinking of work still, and like thinking more about it because
Oh,
you're working for someone else
to
on
be
weekends?
honest, my mindset probably hasn't changed at all. I still, and I guess that's how I ended up sort of being in the positions I was in, because it's like I just I treat this like my own anyway.
Yeah.
So I treat the job or the company I work for like it's my money. So I don't I don't do anything different to the jobs and manager jobs as I would if it was coming out of my pocket. And I've always been like that, and I will always be like that, because it's like, and sometimes you might spend a little bit more because it's like, okay, cool. I just had one the other day. The subby made a cock up. There's a problem. We've got to get some post powder coated. For a relationship with for us and the client being a council, I'll put my hand in the pocket to make sure that problem's rectified. Technically, you could probably go in the bat and get away with it. But for the next 20 jobs I'm going to get out of council, it's not worth the $1,600 that I'm going to
Yeah.
lose.
Yeah.
So if I was in my own business, I'd make that call. Probably the only difference now is I've got to get approval. Go, hey, to my supervisors or whatever, hey, this is what I'm doing. Any dramas, let me know, but this is what I think the best reason is because of these reasons. That's probably the only difference, which is For someone like you, had your own business, you just go, make the call, bang. That's what we're doing. I've got to make the call and then go, wait a minute, I've got to get approval.
Well, I'm still like that with designers sometimes. So I can't make changes because it's their design. So
Yeah.
I would do things, but same deal. I'll send them an email saying, I think we should do this because of this reason. Let me know. So,
100%. And I do that with designs as well. And it's just going through that right channel, have the email correspondence, get all your ducks in a row, cover your ass, happy days. And yeah, so like in terms of working for someone, I guess that's why they're happy to, companies are happy to go, well, you just do your thing. You do it, we know what you're doing, happy days. And I want this to grow and build. And that's the same interviewing people. We have policies and procedures to follow for landscape solutions, which are nice and rigid. The one thing I do say to all the guys that I interview is like, hey, this is about us doing a good job because we want the next job. So if we win the next job, guess what? You get to stay here and we all get to stay here and we're all not traveling to Brisbane following work. So it's incumbent on everyone, the apprentice, the operator, the foreman or whatever, to do a good job because ultimately it's going to mean you're not having to go and look for work down the road because none of us want it. So I guess that philosophy, it's what you do in your own business. That's what we do up here is just like, this is us. We're here to do a good job, here to service our clients, we're here to make money, we're here to do all those things. But ultimately, you do that well, we're going to get more work. And guess what? We're not traveling down the road. So I guess that's my philosophy and what I'm trying to sort of create up here. And that's no different to, solutions anywhere, wherever they are. They all do the same. We all ultimately have the same goal is do a good job, be profitable, but service our client and our, whether it's the builder or the client upstream. You do that, you're going to win more work. It's a lot easier to win more work coming from first or coming from a place where you've done a good job. It just gets easier as time goes on. That's what I found. It's the sort of longer you stay in the industry and say it's easy, it's always hard to win a job, but you've got to go and work for it. You've got to put the hard yards in. But I don't know, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable working for people too, because you go to site and you're not actually talking about the job. You're talking about, their footy club or their what they if they surf or whatever they do. You've got those relationships. So you talk about that rather than, yell at each other what's happening on site. So
yeah.
that's what I find enjoyable.
Last question for you, Jack, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, look, to be honest, it's probably a couple. I'd say Tim Buckle, the owner of this business, would be a fantastic chat for you. Ultimately, an ultimate really successful businessman. Build it up from a ute and a shovel and a couple of blokes sort of type deal. He's ultimately a landscaper. So
Yeah.
that's what I really like about Tim. He's done it. He's been there and done it. Not much older than me. I think he's in his early 50s. So yeah, he's been in the game a long time, big business and done it really well. So I'd say Tim.
Does
Yeah,
he
Tim.
have his much hands on?
Look, he's across a lot. So he's in Queensland fortnightly. So he has more so, has his sort of touch points with his senior managers, in a regular occurrence, but always approachable, always, talks it pretty straight and doesn't give you too much lip service. So he's really knowledgeable in the industry. He would be a decent chat for you if you can if you can find him and get some time. He'd be a good one.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for that.
No worries, mate. Look,
couldn't have been more excited when you said yes to come on. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It's great to catch up.
mate, look, honoured to be on, and I've been, I don't know, it's a bit older in life. You sort of remember when you first started, sort of to watch what you're doing now with the podcast and all the jobs you've done at the International Flower and Garden Show. It's sort of I don't know, makes me feel really good to watch how you've developed and your family and all that sort of stuff. It's really cool. So no, congratulations to you, mate.